What's going on, everybody out there in Badger Nation? I hope you are having such as good of a day as you can possibly have during this coronavirus pandemic that we are living through. Steven, how are you passing the time?
You know, I'm considering doing some activities that would be like one-person activities, like renting a super sweet sports car and just like driving that around for a little bit.
Sweet.
Just drive up and down the coast.
What's your sports car of choice?
I'm looking at an Audi R8.
Nice.
Just get it for a weekend.
Cruising down Route 1, that California wind in your hair and your coronavirus beard, which, don't forget, dear listeners, you all heard Steven say he will not shave until the last case of coronavirus is eradicated, which could be potentially 20 years.
In fact, going above and beyond that, I recently bought beard growth oil. It was actually, someone offered to reimburse me for it. So we're going to see if we can get this to not be so patchy and fill out a little bit.
There are many things that I'm hoping for in this world. One of them is that you continue your beard, and I'm very excited about it. I also am growing a Corona beard.
Your beard looks fantastic, by the way. I don't know if I've ever told you that. You have a fantastic beard.
Oh, dude, come on. You're going to make me blush. And with that, let's move on to the topic. Well, tune in next week for Steven and Mike's beard journey as it goes. But let's jump in to the actual topic for today. Now, this topic is a scary one. It is a frightening one. It is one that potentially made you shiver your timbers. It is the fact that Amazon sent out a notification recently about some potentially big advertising console interface things, and we're going to talk about it today, whether or not you should be scared. Alrighty, Steven. So I'm going to read the prompt that everybody got in their Seller Central account over the last few weeks. And I know if people are listening to this, they have definitely logged into their Amazon advertising Seller Central account over the last few weeks because everyone here is vigilant and on top of their campaigns. So I'm going to read, and I want you to give me the reaction that you had when you first read this. So, normal day, I'm logging into Seller Central. I see this report, this alert from Amazon. It says campaign management and stores will be moving from Seller Central to Amazon Advertising Console. Only your campaigns, stores, and advertising related reports will move. You can access your advertising information from the Seller Central menu and easily return from Advertising Console. Your account and sign-in information will remain the same. What was your first reaction to this, Steven?
Dang it.
Right. What? Expand on that.
So in the past, people who are, there's like kind of the divide between sellers and vendors, third-party sellers, first-party sellers. And the vendors, or who operate off Vendor Central and sell directly to Amazon, and Amazon sells the products, they have been using Advertising Console, whereas sellers have been using Campaign Manager through Seller Central. So we've been running ad campaigns on both the Ad Console and the Seller Central Campaign Manager, and the Seller Central Campaign Manager is so much better, so much cleaner, easier to navigate. Ad Console just feels like it's in beta, and they are quickly catching up to what Seller Central can do, but they're still a little behind. For the longest time, they didn't have any ad groups possible. Like in sponsored product campaigns, you couldn't have ad groups. You couldn't add negative keywords to automatic campaigns. You could only add negative keywords to manual campaigns, like weird stuff like that. It's also just kind of buggy. It's kind of weird. So I would rather have all the vendors come to the Seller Central Campaign Manager But apparently they're moving everybody to one URL, advertising.amazon.com. So whether you're a seller or whether you're a seller or a vendor, all of that is going to be meeting on the advertising platform now.
Yes. So on that post that Amazon had, I had very similar thoughts to you. I was like, why? Seller Central is a better platform. And it's been that way for quite some time. There were always some differences, but for the last few years, Seller Central Campaign Manager, I think, has been superior to what was previously known as AMS, Amazon Marketing Services. And it was very weird because sometimes AMS would get a feature, Seller Central didn't. Sometimes Seller Central would get a feature, and AMS didn't. What I believe is happening is Amazon is trying to merge the two and move to a sort of a flagship, have a more flagship product. And this is actually pretty interesting because if you remember, Stephen, and how we are very much time travelers, we predicted that Seller Central Campaign Manager and Advertising Console would start looking more and more similar. We had this in our sort of 2020 predictions way back when. And it looks like, yeah, they're going to look so similar. They will be one in the same, one spot to manage all campaigns. And on one hand, that's awesome. If you're listening to the show, we've gotten so many messages from people that are advertising books, are doing all different kinds of sellers, vendors, authors, handmade, so on and so forth. We want so badly for all of this to merge into one, a flagship product that everyone has the same sort of tool belt, that everyone sort of has the same shared vocabulary that works the same. So this is good in that regard. It's bad in the regard that things change so much on Amazon that you need to allocate 20% of your energy just to keep up with changes. So things are continuing to change. We're going to break that down. And the first thing that I want to say is, so far, so good. Stephen, when we were prepping for this show, we went into it with a lot of that older mentality of like, oh man, Amazon Advertising Console, it's a little bit more sluggish. It doesn't have all the features. And that was true for a very, very, very long time. And now it looks like you are much harder pressed to find a big, massive, fat difference in there.
Yeah, I mean, they also, for the longest time, especially authors and people who are on KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, they are on the ad console as well. And also, you guys may hear us refer to this as AMS sometimes. That's the old name for the ad console, AMS, Amazon Marketing Services. So I mean, sometimes we'll call it that, just as an archaic term. So sometimes people will, even vendors and people who are in Vendor Central and who are using AMS, those are even sometimes used interchangeably, even though
right,
you don't have to be a vendor to be on AMS. You could also be a book author, a Kindle and be using AMS. So
right, I think AMS seems like it's retiring. Like it seems like people are using it less and less, and people are more so calling it AA, Amazon Advertising or Ad Console.
Or Ad Console. Yeah, but I mean, for the longest time, book authors couldn't even get search term reports. I mean, at all.
I know.
Imagine optimizing your campaigns without search term reports. And so you couldn't really do RPSB. And you also couldn't add negative keywords to your auto campaigns. And you also don't know what should be negative keywords. You were literally just flying blind and just throwing money into a system. And it was literally like a wishing well.
Blind. We were really fortunate to work with an author for quite some time during those days. And I mean, we still have PTSD because this was a big, successful author, not to humble brag, but this was a pretty big, successful author that was spending quite a bit
just in book ads.
And a lot of the things that we would want to do, we had our hands tied behind our back. Lo and behold, Stephen, we optimized that pretty darn well. even with one hand tied behind our back. So in the sense of a lot of these principles still held true, even though it didn't have everything. And the good news is, as of now, it seems like Amazon has worked to rectify the differences between Ad Console and Seller Central ads. So that is sort of the spirit of this episode, just sort of letting you know that you shouldn't necessarily fear this. There are going to be some weird quirks, which we'll get to in a second, but overarching, I do not believe there will be that big of a transition period if you've never used Amazon advertising or Ad Console or AMS, Amazon Marketing Services. The differences seem to have been smoothed out over the last few weeks and months on Amazon's end.
Now, the other thought that kind of first came to my mind when I saw that banner. So the first thing was like, wait, we're moving to Ad Console. Well, that's going to be annoying just because it's a little bit, and we'll talk towards the end of this episode about like the bulk operations side of things and why I hate that in Ad Console. It's practically useless. But the second thing was, for clients that we manage in Ad Console, Ad Console permissions or adding someone as a user to the Ad Console is different from adding them to Seller Central. So when we're managing accounts, one of the things that we love to tap into that you guys have probably heard us in the earlier episodes in, I guess it was early March, late February, talking about brand analytics, how to use that. We use brand analytics. We access that from Seller Central. And so it's easy to just be added as a user to Seller Central. Hey, here are the permissions we need, brand analytics, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's possible because Ad Console is a different URL, a different website. That's for people who were vendors or book authors. They would add us as users and give us user permissions through the Ad Console. So now I'm wondering if it's just going to complicate the process to be like added as a user from a agency management perspective, like getting people to now add us as users to do two different platforms, giving us different user permissions for each. Like, hey, we need to be able to see business reports here and brand analytics here, but then an ad console, like, give us everything. So,
right.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of PPC consultants, marketing consultants, agencies that listen to the show, and Amazon's sort of presenting more work as opposed to, hey, you can just get added to Seller Central. Now you're probably going to have to get added to Ad Console and Seller Central. And what's weird is that they both have different like access processes. So like our internal SOP that we send people when we're getting access is different for both. And now you're going to have to send people both sets of instructions. And from a client perspective, just know that if you are giving someone access to your account, just know now there's going to be probably two separate things for you to do, which can be pretty frustrating. I hope, fingers crossed, that like advertising console knows that you're logged in. So when you're like clicking into Seller Central or clicking into Ad Console, it like maintains your login. You don't have to constantly log in and out. That could be pretty frustrating.
Mm-hmm. One final thing, just from an agency perspective of managing multiple accounts, the Ad Console does have a much easier way to manage multiple accounts. You can add accounts, remove accounts pretty quickly. Whereas with Seller Central, if you've been added as a user, you can't like when you're picking a merchant to, check out their campaigns, you can't remove merchants from an account or from your account. Like once you're added as a user, you as the user, the added user, you can't choose to no longer be the user. Only they can. Whereas with Ad Console, if you're added as a user, you can choose from your own perspective, your own login to the Ad Console to, view certain merchants or to, hide certain merchants, to kind of just clean it up. So that is easier.
I hope the bookmark method of sort of logging into a specific store, like a specific marketplace or a specific client, still holds true. It is a little bit hit or miss with me, depending if I'm logged in or not. Sometimes if I'm not logged in and I click on a bookmark to go access a particular customer in a particular marketplace, I'm like redirected to like the last one that I was logged in as. That's kind of frustrating. User management is kind of weird too. So like if you have multiple people on your team managing a campaign, it's sometimes pretty cumbersome. You might end up with like sharing logins, and now you're logging into multiple things. So logging in isn't fantastic. I wish Amazon would take a page out of like Google's book in terms of how they manage logins, because it's like your Google account. All Google services you're logged in for. You don't have to constantly log out and log back in. So I wish that Amazon would take a page out of their book.
So all of that sort of precursor to this new platform being out of the way, for folks who have only ever been on Seller Central and have never seen the ad console and have no idea what to expect, this episode is for you. Overall, things are going to be pretty similar. The main differences are going to be, and this is kind of how Amazon described it. Actually, let me pull up their official thing. So they say, sellers using Seller Central for their advertising activities will notice a change in their experience over the next few months. All advertising management will move from Seller Central to the advertising console, which can be accessed from the Amazon advertising website. They are going to basically include a link, like a portal within Seller Central that will basically be like jump to advertising, to the advertising console, and then you'll be taken to the advertising platform. You will need to log in again there, but you will have the same email and password. But it is two separate URLs that will require two separate logins. And then when you're in advertising console, there will be another portal link that says back to Seller Central. So that will be another, I don't know, sort of inconvenience that you got to switch back and forth between the two. You can't really just have the tabs right there on the top. But when you come to the ad console, Amazon about, I want to say it was like 5 or 6 months ago, they actually did a redesign of the ad console. So it used to look basically the exact same as Campaign Manager within Seller Central. And then they recently did a UI upgrade to it, or I guess I'll just call it an update. I don't know if it's necessarily an upgrade. I don't know if it's better or not. But they're using more of the color blue. That's one thing that I noticed. There's a lot more blue happening in Seller Central when you're looking at your campaigns. And by the way, if you're kind of, if you're a visual learner and you'd love to kind of, rather than us just describe the colors to you, if you want to see it yourself, on our blog post, we're grabbing screenshots of Seller Central versus the ad console and showing what everything looks like. But in Seller Central, if you're using if you're in Campaign Manager, you will see these tabs across the top of your screen that say like go to reports, go to bulk operations. You'll see all of that there. In the ad console, that's not on the top anymore. Instead, it is on a sidebar, which you need to mouse over. So it's going to be on the left-hand side. When you mouse over it, this little sidebar will pop up. And from there, you can navigate to reports, bulk operations, jump to stores. That's also going to be where you find your Back to Seller Central portal link. So that's probably going to be the first thing that catches your eye. Nothing really major in terms of like, it's not going to change your life or your day, but that's just one of the things that you can expect.
Yeah. And then beyond that, the actual way that you move around, Amazon has unified these quite a bit over the last few months, and that's good. So your reports, once you're there, are going to look the same. So even though you're switching up from a top navigation, like you click on advertising reports from up top in Seller Central, it's not going to be on the left side. And I know that our designer does not like sidebar navigation, and she shared a lengthy blog article because I suggested it for our app, and she said, not on my watch. So there are some UX UI considerations when you have a left sidebar, because the top menu bar, top navigation for advertising console is pretty empty. It just has your name and like a notification bell, and that's pretty much it. On the left side, once you make it to your reports, the reports page looks the same. The create campaign looks the same in advertising console as it does Seller Central. So they have done quite a bit of work unifying them, and I'm happy. And what I would hope is that sort of, if these were two separate teams working on these two separate platforms, they can finally put their heads together and like build one product and build it even stronger. So I'm excited to see that happen over the coming months and years.
Yeah, there were so many differences between these two advertising platforms that, we were always wondering like, okay, it's either two teams working on two different projects, or it's one team working on two different projects and they're clearly not putting enough time into one of them. But hopefully now, with either unifying the team or at least unifying the team's, you're either unifying the teams or unifying the team's efforts. And the second teams, there was an apostrophe S, not a plural S. But unifying the team's efforts I'm hoping that'll mean, if everybody's working on the same project instead of having two separate projects, hopefully that should mean advances happen a lot faster. There are things we're still waiting on, like ad groups for sponsored brand ads. Like, we know that's coming. We've seen hints of that when you download a sponsored brand's search term report. You see an ad group column in that search term report. So we're seeing some foreshadowing, even if that's unintentional from Amazon. But hopefully with this unification of effort, we will see those changes happen faster, and also squash bugs faster. With the ad console, I've personally run into a lot of bugs with their bulk operations. And when I've written in to our Amazon rep, and he forwards this to the bulk operations teams or the dev teams or whoever's in charge of it, the Seller Central side, when I've had issues with Seller Central, they resolve extremely quickly. We're talking 24 to 48 hour turnaround time, and the issue is fixed. With the ad console, I write in, I don't hear back, I follow up, I don't hear back. 3 days later, I follow up, never hear back from them. It's just like radio silence, and then maybe finally be like, okay, they'll follow up and be like, we need more information. Can you tell us this? I tell them that. A week passes, I follow up. It's basically nothing happens. So some of the issues that I've noticed have been springing up with bulk operations in the ad console. Number one, you need to have the campaign ID. So if you've used bulk operations before, you know that when you download either a file of your account or if you download a template, the very first column that you see there is the record ID column, and then it's going to show the record type. And then the third column will say the campaign ID. Campaign ID is basically just a serial number for that campaign. So if you're trying to add an ad group or add a keyword, you need the campaign ID. For Seller Central, you don't need the campaign ID. It's helpful. But if you know the campaign name, the Seller Central bulk operations, whatever you want to call it, the program can find the campaign. So if I want to, add a campaign negative keyword to a certain campaign, and so I just pick the campaign, type in my keyword, type in the campaign name, type in the keyword, and just say add it as a campaign negative. It'll find the campaign, it'll upload it. With Ad Console, if you do the same process, it will not work. It will say that you need to enter the campaign ID. And the reason for that, and this actually really made me angry one day. I was trying to create some new campaigns for a client in Ad Console, and we were trying to create a bunch of new. They were part of it was a vendor. They were part of a Born to Run program, which basically says Amazon will give this vendor 90 days to sell out of a product to see if it's going to be a successful product or not. And I tried to upload this bulk sheet and got some errors. So I tried uploading again, got some more errors, tried uploading again, got some more errors. And then finally, I got everything through. Here's what pissed me off. Every time I uploaded those, it recreated the new campaigns. So I had I had uploaded 80 campaigns in this, and now there were 80 campaigns that all had triplets. And they all had the exact same campaign name. They were duplicates. With Seller Central, you can't have a duplicate campaign. If you had done it, if I had tried that, it would have said campaign name already exists. You can't do that. If you try to create a new campaign, it'll throw an error saying, even in Seller Central, if you're not even using bulk operations, it'll throw an error saying you can't have a duplicate campaign name. With the Ad Console, you can have a duplicate campaign name. And so that is also why they require the campaign IDs, because if you just have the campaign name saying, hey, I want to add an ad group to this campaign, it doesn't know which campaign if you have multiple, so it'll say you need the campaign ID. I feel like that's an oversight. I don't think you should be allowed to have duplicate campaign names, but it's something nonetheless. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like bulk operations is you need the campaign ID, which can be a pain to grab, because the only way to grab that campaign ID is by downloading a bulk file and doing a VLOOKUP and being like, okay, look for the campaign with this name, and then grab the campaign ID and then add it to this bulk file that I'm trying to upload. And that becomes a problem if there are duplicate campaigns with the same names, because then the VLOOKUP won't necessarily grab the right campaign ID. It drives me nuts.
So much of paid traffic is being organized. So like I can easily imagine a process where you keep that in a Google Sheet somewhere, like your name of campaigns and your IDs for like quick, easy access. That might be a way to mitigate that. But I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
Yeah, I feel like
Steven.
I'm just ranting right now, so I apologize.
A lot of PPC has extra steps included. And we have two more sort of differences and sort of strangeness when using bulk operations in Ad Console. The first is if you go to try to upload a campaign negative via bulk uploads, error, not supported. And so I assume that'll be remedied in the future. And also, Stephen, you noticed some weird things happening uploading SKU versus ASIN in Ad Console.
Yeah, so if you're a vendor, you don't really have two different SKUs. Well, so for a lot of sellers, they'll have two different SKUs for one ASIN. They'll maybe have an FBA SKU, and then they'll also have an FBM SKU. And then sometimes there's even like resellers, especially if you're not a brand registered, and there are other sellers that are also selling the same ASIN, and they have their own SKUs. So there could be like 5, 10 different SKUs all selling the same ASIN, which is Amazon's identification number. For Vendor Central, because you're a first-party seller, you sell directly to Amazon, Amazon sells it, there only is one ASIN, there is no SKU, it's just Amazon's ASIN. And so if you're uploading in the Ad Console side of things, for your bulk operations, you need to upload an ASIN, because Ad Console historically has only really been for vendors and, of course, some like Kindles and book authors and stuff. But I believe even those would use ASINs. With sellers, if you try to upload a bulk sheet, and you use your product's ASIN, you'll get an error. You need to use the SKU. So now that they're combining sellers and vendors all in the Ad Console, I kind of wonder what the bulk upload process is going to look like. If it's going to say upload SKU or ASIN. If you are a seller and you're uploading an ASIN, is that going to throw an error? So that'll be interesting to kind of watch.
Yes, the questions of our time. I think so in general, if I had to recap what this switch means from running your campaigns inside Seller Central, having those move to Amazon advertising, best case scenario is you do not notice a difference other than you click a button and you go somewhere else outside of Seller Central. That's best case scenario. Best case scenario, all of the same features are there. And in our check, it looks like as of April 9th, a lot of the same interface things are the same. Create a campaign, download a report, create a new keyword. Those things look the same. So that's good. It looks like bulk operations haven't quite caught up yet. And I do hope they get that fixed. But in general, I feel good about the merging of these platforms. I so desperately want Amazon to stop thinking of its own platform as a fragmented machine and instead start pouring all the resources into one shared thing that everybody can use, regardless if they're a seller, vendor, author, handmade, whatever. If you're on Amazon, you use Amazon advertising, and then all of their resources go into creating a big, fat, robust platform. That is my hope for the future, Steven. What do you hope for?
Less bugs, cleaner programs.
Leaner programs and wide open spaces driving down Route 1. Route 1 in your Audi. Speaking of being Audi, that's the end of this episode. I'm Audi.
That was a great transition.
Good one, everybody. Yes. See you guys later. Taking selfie in 3, 2, 1.